Hello ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I'm currently streaming on Twitch. We just finished up the second or the third day of the LPL, where we had a fantastic debut of Gala. There's been an update in the LCS Debacle, and I thought that I'd update you. If you don't follow along on Twitter, follow along on Reddit. I'm going to help the viewers of my channel. There's been an update from Naz, which is, I believe she is some head of esports role, very high up role in terms of the esports scene. She was on stage giving the trophies for Messiah and so forth, very high up. A statement by a named person, which is, a plus, a statement from a named person. There's a responsibility behind it. An update on the 2023 LCS summer season. There's been a lot of discussion over the past few days about the North American Challenger League and the LCSPA walkouts. I know many of you have questions about where I stand, so I'd like to share some thoughts as well as scheduling decisions we made with the goal of getting to a positive outcome. First and foremost, we support players, we also support teams, and we believe more than ever in the LCS. The LCS has always been a flagship league for all esports, and we care deeply about it. We know that everyone in the ecosystem, from the players to the teams to Riot to everyone behind the scenes making each week possible and so many others, all share the same goals for the LCS. We need an LCS that is thrilling to watch and showcases the highest levels of League of Legends play. We need a league that represents the pinnacle of North American competition, one that serves as an aspirational goal for competitive players who want to build a career playing League of Legends with a clear path to the LCS. We need an esports league that will one day bring the Summoners Cup home to North America. And we need a sustainable, economically viable, predictable league that supports a thriving ecosystem around it for the players, teams, analysts, coaches, support staff, casters, broadcast crews, and more. There's been a lot of talk about the current state of esports, including esports' long-term future. Over the last few months, we've been more focused than ever on meeting the team's needs for economic sustainability. But we also know that sustainability can come at the expense of having a robust, thriving development pipeline to bring fresh, homegrown new blood into the league. We're excited by what we see in the amateur and collegiate scenes, and we know we need to do more to nurture those communities and bridge the gap between them and the professional scene. We also believe in the Tier 2 development system. We also know that our past efforts with LCS Academy haven't produced consistent results in terms of promotion to LCS. We believe that Tier 2 can be a viable, exciting league in its own right, and that the next great world-class players will start their journey here. Riot has successfully architected a Tier 2 ecosystem in other major regions, Europe, China, and Korea, and we want to do the same for North America. It will take some shifts and trade-offs to get there, so to help the North America scene through this transition, we've decided to give our NACL partner Rally Cry an additional $300,000 in order to jumpstart the 2023 NACL season next week. This funding is in addition to the revenue share to the NACL teams we announced last week. So basically, for those who don't know, Rally Cry is the partner that is basically managing the tournament that is the NACL. And they would get a stipend of $300,000. And there's been talks about, there is going to be an additional revenue share to the NACL teams that they announced last week. The issue with this, of course, is that this is insanely vague. There's no public information or known information on how much money or revenue is actually generated, and Riot has no incentive to release that information, right? I think Riot is fully in control of their own product, and from their standpoint that's great. From a competitive and consumer standpoint, that's a bit tougher, right? $300K, I don't think that is enough to change anything. I don't know how this funding would be used in terms of maybe getting casters or making the broadcast a little bit more exciting, what the idea is, but $300K is not something that is going to revamp the whole league. I don't know how this $300K could be used, but that's something I guess we can pay attention to. Transitioning from the ineffective academy system to the new NACL model will be helped by this funding. It will also be working with LCS and NACL teams along with the LCSPA to increase upward mobility opportunities for players to the LCS, which is the ultimate goal of a Tier 2 developmental league. To make sure we live up to the quality we promised to fans, we're delaying the LCS season for 2 weeks. This is the big headline here. Riot did, offer their hand and said that there's no ranked restrictions, and they wanted to basically say, we're going to teams are going to have to field any players that they can find in order to keep the league going, which of course turned out to be a bluff, or maybe the backlash, or how the players reacted to the idea of being scabs. There was this level of irony in the idea that academy teams are now needed for the LCS rosters. So definitely, in a world where randoms would play on stage, that would ruin the integrity of the league. And I think that the season could be cancelled altogether. Giving it 2 weeks definitely can maintain the legitimacy of the split. And I think this is a far better decision. But it does make them look a little bit weaker here in regards to, them showing their hand a little bit. Right? All that said, a top priority for us is the fans. While last week we immediately put in place contingency plans to begin the LCS season on Thursday, we ultimately decided that it would not hold true to our values that Riot Esports offers our players and fans showcase for the best competitive League of Legends. I think they kind of used it to put pressure, right? To put pressure on the teams and the players, and to kind of withdraw power from them, and it didn't really work. And nothing but putting the best players in North America on the stage at Riot Games Arena is acceptable. And that's something that they knew before, right? So this was plain and simple like a mistake, and this is them backtracking on that, right? So we informed LCSPA leadership today that we will delay the LCS season for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, this 2-week window will give us time for a productive dialogue between the LCSPA teams and the league, and then resume LCS competition this summer. The LCS will not be penalizing the teams for not fielding the rosters during this 2-week period to allow everyone space to focus on constructive dialogue. We're doing our best to ensure LCS employees, contractors, and others supporting the LCS are not negatively impacted by the delay. Delaying beyond the 2-week window would make it nearly impossible to run a legitimate competition, and in that case we will be prepared to cancel the entire LCS summer season. So that is Riot basically taking full control over the conversation. If Riot is ready to do this, I don't think the players and the teams are ready to do this. And you guys know that scene with Bane. Let me just pull up that scene with Bane. All right? Let me pull up that scene with Bane, okay? You think you are in charge?
What?
Right here, man. Do you feel in charge? That's pretty much it. I want to show you guys this one. Carrying this forward, if the LCS summer season is cancelled, this will also eliminate LCS teams qualifying for 2023 Worlds. I want to be clear. That is not an outcome we'd want, but it's unfortunately the reality of ensuring we run a fair, competitive global system. The LCSPA has made several requests. Here's how we've addressed them. I also want to address the 5 demands from the LCSPA with the response that we also provided the LCSPA today. So in my previous video, people were disappointed that I didn't understand that the Valorant style promotion system and relegation is different from a traditional relegation system. So basically, for those who don't know, the Valorant system basically has partner teams, and they can't be eliminated or be taken out. If you qualify to the league, you're going to be then in the league for 2 years, and then you have to requalify, right? So there's like these rotating slots within the league that get to play in the league, and these are teams that come out of the challenger circuit. Still, my point still stands. Any change in what the system is a dilution of each position. This is, of course, less of a dilution than what a expansion would be, but it's still a dilution. Keep in mind, teams spent money for something, all right? Imagine you spend money for something and you gain investors based off of that something. You create your business plan based off of that something, regardless how bad the business plan is and how much critique you can move in that way. The issue is you cannot make those type of demands onto someone. Because imagine you buy something and then somewhere down the line, someone tells you, imagine you buy a car and then further down the line, they tell you, actually, we want the car seats back. But it's like, what do you mean? I bought the fucking car, right? So obviously diluting something that they purchased is something that they clearly don't want to do, right? And that is, of course, a consequence of franchising, is that it puts more power in the hands of the organizations. That's the whole point. It is supposed to give more power into the hands of the organization and less in the hands of the players. And that it was supposed to bring more stability and structure. To some degree, it did. But funds were mismanaged, which is an entirely different conversation. Funds were mismanaged because the expectation of growth in esports, the projections were very, very far off. And in terms of how the spending matched up to that was a massive mistake. And now teams globally are licking the wounds. It's not only in North America. It's also something that is happening in the LEC, right? Something that is happening in Korea too. It's like a lot of the Korean teams are just burning money, right? LPL, it's like the whole conversation about RNG wanting to sell their slot and whatever, right? This is a team that has been around for a very long time, right? And nevertheless, we continue. Expanding the league in order to implement a Valorant-style visitor slot system would run counter to our existing partnership model with the 10 LCS teams who paid 10 million per slot to compete in the league. Yes. It would dilute LCS teams' equity and put considerable downward pressure on the amount of revenue, our league revenue pool that we share with the teams. More teams in the pool would dilute the revenues that we share 50% with our teams under the partnership model. Given the challenging macroeconomic climate, expanding the league is not a good idea at this time. It really isn't. Keep in mind, it's like the LCS teams, from which position did they want to commit to this decision, where they don't want to be forced to field an NACL team? It comes from a position of wanting to save money and looking where their money is well spent and where it's not. The NACL team was not a beneficial cost for most of the teams. And I think what I want to make clear is, while people are fighting for the LCS teams to stay involved, it wasn't something that was actively working. It wasn't something that was actively working. It wasn't something that was actively beneficial. It was just money burnt down the toilet. The teams in the LCS, the majority of them couldn't find a way to make the NACL be worth something. And in a lot of cases, they're even struggling to make the LCS worth something. Additionally, what I want to add, I think the main mistake that occurred here from LCS's side and from the team side is the fact that they didn't have the foresight to look at this from a couple of years back. That is where the mistake lies. Because this could have been planned, and this could have been an honest and open conversation about the situation of the NACL. That is the only mistake, and that is the only bargaining point and the community pressure that is involved here. A lot of people are up in arms because people like the idea of North America, but who watches the NACL? Not a lot of people give a damn about the NACL. In a lot of cases, teams use the NACL to park potential players that they would put into their main team. It was just a parking spot that teams were holding that was shaded by a money tree. Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for 5 players who win the NACL Summer Finals. I think this demand in the first place was just stupid. I don't think this makes sense at all. you win the league and you should be guaranteed the salary. I think this is such a pointless thing to spend money on. Really pointless thing to spend money on. Like if you win the finals and you can't find yourself a team, or you don't feel incentivized to find a team, I think it's silly. I don't even know why this was a demand in the first place. Guaranteed LCS contracts for winners aren't a necessary component of a healthy developmental league. For sure it's not. LCS teams are in the best position to decide who should get a shot. We will continue to discuss initiatives to connect LCS to NACL players like we have in place with scouting grounds. Players should rise to the LCS based on merit, potential and team fit rather than artificially forced mechanisms. Yes. And our focus will be on finding ways to increase the flexibility and mobility of that movement rather than forcing it. Yes. So this altogether, like, the more often I read this, the more and more the LCS Player Association looks kind of amateurish, right? Institute a 3 to 5 continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their slots in the upcoming NACL season if a majority continue to compete together. Teams provide greater continuity and structure, and therefore we will continue with our policy of slot ownership residing with organizations rather than players. This just follows the line of logic from before, right? It's like the reason they moved to the franchise model was because they believed that power in the hands of organizations will provide greater continuity and structure. Because keep in mind, right, you know, in the next point, right, let's just talk about it. Riot commit to a revenue pool for player salaries $300,000 per NACL team per year, and this is a lot of fucking money. A lot of money. This ask is for multiple millions in subsidies for the NACL. That simply isn't sustainable. And to be brutally honest, it shouldn't be necessary. We have other tier 2 leagues around the world which thrive on their own, and we believe the NACL can get to that place too. What we will do is help the North American scene through this transition. So as I mentioned above, we will be investing in a bridge period by providing a special one-time payment of $300,000 to the NACL's tournament operator Rally Cry to support the NACL teams during the transition to the new structure. So basically, like in the context of this money, right, there's a lot of hidden costs that there's a lot of hidden costs. Like if you're going to be, first and foremost, like the fact that any of this is tied to California is craziness, right? It's like the NACL should be strictly online, and that would alleviate a lot of the pressures. Additionally, it's like, keep in mind, like if you have a salaried employee, right, there's a lot of other things that need to be involved there too. It needs to be, it's like accounting, and there needs to be, you know, sometimes in a lot of cases, health insurance. You know, there's a lot of things in place that aren't just, oh, 300,000, that means 5 times 6, okay, so we have 60,000 for each player, and then all the costs are done. No, there's a lot of additional costs behind that. Right? Allow LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. Now, this is where I believe the LCS Partner Association, like Player Association, really like embarrass themselves if this is true. Like, this is very embarrassing. We've seen examples of partnerships between pro teams and tier 2 teams across the globe result in greater upward mobility of pros and more sustainable tier 2 ecosystems. That's why when I read the demands, I was surprised that this is not even in place in the first place, right? I was like, okay, this is a reasonable. I think this should be a demand. I think this is something that should be in place. And if not, I want to understand why. Why is this not in place? Right? Because there's been cases where there's been teams in Ultraliga 2 or Prime League 2 where they were not allowed to stream their games for some reason, when in reality they could have boomed the whole league into the stratosphere in terms of numbers, right? So we've seen examples, right? That is why we already, and we will continue to, allow affiliate relationships to exist between teams in the LCS and NACL. For example, Gordon Guardians and Area of Effect. So it turns out, It turns out the teams are actually already doing this. Teams were actually doing this. So I checked it up, right? Yeah, I pulled up Leaguepedia. And I was AoE. We just pull up AoE, right? Age of Empires, not Leaguepedia. AoE esports. So I pulled these guys up, right? Let me just find the appropriate page. So AoE Gold is a North American amateur team. It was formed by a partnership between AoE Esports and Golden Guardians. Oh. So it's actually a thing. So in my mind, after reading this, right, I think the LCS, like the answer here, I think is powerful. I think it's good. The fact that they are this is such a win. This is done. The LCS Player Association has no bargaining power. No bargaining power at all. The LCS Player Association is done. And to see now the demands really being like annihilated like this, right? And to even go so far that one of the demands is already in place, it's deeply embarrassing. And the fact that Riot is willing to go all the way and say we are going to cancel the LCS, there is no negotiation anymore. They've won. They've won. And people can be angry about it, upset about it, virtue signal about it, but in the end, it's like, you know, the main mistake in terms of how this was managed was just the timing and the lack of clarity around it, right? If they told us 1.5 years ago, this is going to happen in 1.5 years, this is a cost that is not really functioning, not really working, then it would make sense, right? Then you can easily smooth the transition into something. It's like, in terms of all of this money spent, I mentioned it already yesterday. What I would want to see for the NACL is, it's like, I would want, so for example, we have this guy's toes coming in. It's like, I would try to convince, try to get Tyler One involved, try to get OTK involved, Moist Esports involved, Ludwig, any of these personalities. Just let them breathe live into it and let them, like, try to help them in any way possible. In any way possible to convince them to be involved. Nutsack Esports. We can get Nutsack Esports, Moist Esports. Just create incentives to get the people that can actually create monetary value out of pure personality and content. These are the most powerful forces right now online. If you look at what's happening in the ERLs, right? In the ERLs, you have the French league. OTP is completely smurfing it. OTP is a fantastic organization that is running the league well. And additionally, they have these big catalysts like Carmine Corp and their fan base that is stimulating both sides of it. You have people from Solari, and you have all of these content creators really deeply involved in the product, right? And the same thing, right? The same thing on the end on the LVP. You have Koi and Team Heretics. You have these content creators that are deeply involved in what's going on, and it's sustaining itself on its own. Right? And then you look at the flip side. You look at some of the ERLs that are not doing so well. Look at the NALC. They don't have any content creator behind it. They're struggling. Their teams are selling their slots. The slots are not worth much. Right? The NLC is dead. That is on the flip side. You think in a world where Ultraliga, for example, if you wanted Ultraliga to pop off, I would walk up to Xayo, I would say, yo, I want you guys to actually, I want you guys to build out the team. And I want you guys to co-stream the broadcast, and I want you guys to build out the team. Let's form a partnership. Really, let's form a partnership for the health of the league. That would push the numbers amazingly well. It would pop off, man. And they are creating value internally. I say all of this because the LCS organizations being forced to have teams, they didn't create value. They're struggling to create value even in the LCS. Even in the LCS, they struggle to create value. So you need the bigger players involved. And the big players right now are the content creators. I swear to God, if right now the NACL was Team LS, Team I Will Dominate, Team fucking OTK, Team Moist Esports, Team Disguised Toast, of course I'm really like, I'm really exaggerating the people that are involved, right? I'm really exaggerating, but this would be one of the most watched leagues forever. If the NACL actually took the initiative to actually, you know, get the right people involved that can actually create value, because that is what the content creators do. They create value with very limited investment. Very limited investment. And that is the future of esports in my mind. So, to round this off, right? It's like, I think the LCS Player Association is done. It's done. It's like, there was this tweet, right, from Dom, right? Dom made this tweet, and of course Reddit completely like miscategorized them, right? It's like, miscategorized them. It's like, don't get me wrong, the results of the action might end up being positive for players, but you can't sell me on the fact that the LCSPA cares this much about the Academy. They're simply using these actions of Riot as an opportunity to create this list of asks. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that a lot of the things that have come out definitely have showed that, you know, things are kind of disingenuous, you know? Just remember that the director of the LCSPA didn't even know how many teams were in the NACL. There was a clip where basically he didn't even know how many teams are in the NACL. So how can you make demands for how much money should be subsidized when you don't even know how many teams are in the NACL? It's kind of a bad look, you know? Even after this whole talk of walkout started, I refuse to believe that the actions of the LCSPA are genuine. Right? So it's like, people is like, how does the Riot boot taste? It's like, it's crazy how people are so quick to jump to a side, right? Like, there's been so much virtue signaling going on, and I think as this whole thing will play out, I think that everything will be a lot more evident, you know? Like, saying this to Dom is so tone deaf, by the way. So tone deaf. And I think I wanted to read through Veteran's tweet thread, because I think that he had a very good point and share that with you. I'm glad the LCSPA put out a statement like this because it pigeonholes them. Right now, my biggest concern is the overwhelming majority vote. Why it was surprising is that it doesn't strike me as the overwhelming majority would actually want the NACL to remain, which is kind of fair, right? A large amount of the players in the NACLs are there specifically because of the NACL, and the talent development as a whole have been a failure. We've had arguments on how players feel threatened by second teams in their org throughout the history of EUNA. Why would it change now? To me, I think NACL was a catalyst for the majority of NA players to try to secure job security for themselves. My biggest concern for the last 24 hours has been that the LCSPA agrees to Riot protections without the NACL mandate. Riot would outplay them if so, and here's why. If you use NACL demands to negotiate better protections for yourself as an LCS player and then leave NACLs in the mud but get what you wanted, Riot would destroy the LCSPA in a very real PR sense. PR-wise, the above tweet solidifies the LCS must follow through with the NACL demands. Before this tweet, I was pretty much convinced that Riot would meet tomorrow and give the LCS players protection so their own contracts can't meet the fate of NACLs, or be downgraded from the employment to freelance, and LCS would proceed. Now I'm slightly less worried. Slightly. If I'm right on this reading, and I really hope I'm wrong, then the statement above would call on any amateur players to actually act against their own best interests. LCSPA cannot back off without NACL being remandated for NA players to develop in, or is doomed. The way this is cooking and saucing up, this is not aging well. This is not aging well. You're completely subverting the fact that Riot lied to the players about not touching their contracts until 2024. In what way touching their contracts until 2024? How do you mean? So I've made it clear that Riot's biggest mistake was rushing this and the lack of openness around the NACL. What are you referencing to? Can you say what you're referencing to, May 51 Flow, so I understand what you mean? I'm genuinely curious. Like, I'm not asking to roast you. Yes, I agree. He said that I subverted if they subverted the fact, okay, I agree. I said that the biggest mistake of the teams and the LCS was the fact that they didn't do this in an open way, and this wasn't like pre-planned ahead of time. I'm very sad that people lost their job, right? But the fact is, like, it's all about optics, right? And how these people got to plan, right? Plan their life. Let's say a world, right, where it's like this is the timeline, right? This is the timeline. This is 2020. This is 21, 22, and now we're in 23, right? Okay? It's like if we were told by LCS here, in this point in time, that we're going to move away from the mandated league and we're going to create a situation where, this is where it's going to end and we're preparing for this scenario, that would be fine. No one will give a shit. No one will give a shit. That would be completely fucking fair. Because the reasoning as to why they want to do it are perfectly fine and valid. Right? But the fact that it happened like a fucking rug pull, it's the problem. But the reasons why any teams don't want to have the mandate, I think are completely viable. Completely viable. I don't think teams should be forced to have a NACL team. And I don't think they should tank the cost of the NACL just to wait for the solution. I don't think that the LCS should have a mandate for the NACL. You should only be involved in ventures that you believe are fruitful for your business. They are not a union. May 51 Flow. They're not a union. The reason the idea of virtue signaling comes up is that all of a sudden people care about the NACL, right? And there is the level of question, right? It's like, if LCS teams are spending money in a inefficient manner, the argument is not, well, you spent millions in the past, so why can't you just keep spending now because you fucked up in the past? No, that's like, it's like, what are we talking about right now, right? It's like, oh, you want to spend 3 million on Chovy? What does that have to do right now in terms of cutting costs, right? No one watches the NACL, no one cares about the NACL. And that's a problem in itself. That's a problem in itself. But in a world where, let's say, the LCS teams need to spend $500,000, okay? $500,000, okay? 500K. Like, imagine this money pushes them to bankruptcy. And then all of a sudden, these 70 jobs that we're talking about, maybe there's not even an org. There's been mistakes in terms of how money has been managed. 100%. There's been mistakes in terms of the projections. Like, people thought that the growth would be infinite, that the broadcasting rights would be sellable. People wanted to win championships quick because they'll be cheaper later. It's like, oh, if we win now, we'll be able to get players cheaper later, whatever, There's been like a lot of miscalculations in terms of what esports was. And that fucking hurts. That stings. But what does it have to do right now in terms of assessing if teams should be forced to have NACL teams or not? Once again, 10 teams voted. 10 teams voted to remove it. Even the teams that are still involved. They understand the financial landscape, right? I know people like to shit on NA, right? For their mistakes, but 10 teams voted to take it out. So once again, the timing and the way it was done is poor, right? It's sad that fucking people lose their livelihood overnight. That's fucking sucks. I don't wish that on anyone, right? I don't wish that shit on anyone. That's fucking sucks. It should have been planned appropriately, and I still think that the mandate shouldn't be in place. I still think the investment needs to be in making the NACL its complete own thing. The same way the ERLs are thriving. In a world where... Imagine now. So, imagine the NACL. So it turns out this guy's toast, right? So, he's in. I would try to fucking get everybody involved, bro. I would fucking throw money at these guys, man. Moist... Fucking try to do anything you can to get these people involved, man. Really, like, this is the future. This is the future, man. This is the future. This is the future. This is how you create value. This is the only way. Mr. Beast is a bit too much, man. We're not gonna, like, Mr. Beast is bigger than League, guys. And then ideally, you know, imagine the NACL competes against CB LOL. And competes against LLA. And then we have our own fucking America Masters. Give it a cooler name. America Masters. Okay. But this shit takes time, but you need to have the right partners. Obviously, CBLOL is completely popping off right now. This league is getting bigger than the LCS, right? But it's just an idea, right? But the point being is, forcing LCS teams to stay involved is not the solution. I don't care about what the PA wants. And once again, it's like people are talking about job security. What does that even mean? What does it mean? Job security. Job security. In a competitive field, job security, you should, if you sign, for sure, if someone signs a contract, right, then that should be withheld. For sure. For sure. If someone signs a contract, it says in the contract you should be paid, and you should be fucking paid. I'm telling you, the fact that these academy players are out of a job fucking sucks. It's terrible. I've repeated this a million times because this is the only argument people throw back, and that's the only thing. That's the only thing that puts the LCS and the teams in a bad position. The management of the time frame. That's the only thing that puts them in a bad position. But the fact that it happens, it needed to happen. But if you sign a contract expecting 2 years getting paid, yeah, you should be secure for those 2 years. But everything else, bro, if your contract states something different, you don't get a job, you don't get a job. That's the fucking point. That's the point, dude. Job security. You think I had job security at any point in my life? It's a competitive field. In the LEC, how many head coaches are there? There's 10 head coaches. There's 10 slots. It's a competitive field. There's 50 LEC spots. 50 players play in the LEC. 50. 50. In America, 50 players play in the LCS. What job security, man? And obviously, in a competitive environment, you have to assume that teams are going to sign the players that are going to win. The best players, the marketable players. You have to assume that they're going to do that. They have every incentive to do that. That's the problem for esports branching? Way too competitive? What do you mean way too competitive? Of course it has to be competitive. You think there's job security in any traditional sports? You sign a contract and that's your safety. The contract is the safety. Your contract is your safety. Yeah, you get injured, you get fucked. So, once again, I repeat. The biggest mistake of this whole situation for the LCS and everything was just the timing and how it was managed. That is the only bargaining power, is because the community is up in arms about it. But in terms of other bargaining power, it's non-existent, it's not there. And the fact that the Riot slammed their balls on the table and said, yo, if we can't find a solution after 2 weeks, we're gonna cancel the whole league. It's done. Why do people feel entitled to eat and live? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Anyone who puts in time to try to become a pro in league risks so much. The whole point is risk. It's big risk. It's a big fucking risk. Most players that you never heard about that want to become pro didn't achieve shit. You know exactly what I'm saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? They want to get a basic income. They want to get a basic income for being not good enough. No. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You want to get a basic income for not being good enough. No. I don't think that's... Go get a job. Imagine thinking people deserve to get paid for doing jack shit. No way, man. No way. I don't believe in that shit. Go work somewhere else. Bro. There's a... LCS isn't good enough either. For what? What do you mean? For what? LCS isn't good enough. What does that even mean? The people that are in the LCS, that's what they need to be good enough for. Oh, now you're moving the goalposts. Honestly, Jesus. Oh, it's okay, guys. We move on, yeah? I can't believe what I'm reading. Jesus Christ. What a goblin. What a damn goblin, guys. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy, guys. He has to be trolling. 100% trolling. Of course, I support everyone's right to have food and to have, basic conditions to live. Of course, man. But once again, I repeat, the main issue was the rug pull. The rug pull was terrible. 100% terrible. Rug pull, people fucking losing the job overnight. That's fucked up. Not having that level of security is completely fucked. That is fucked up. Really. That is messed up. Really messed up. Everything else, the LCSPA kind of fucking embarrassed themselves. The only bargaining chip was that the community was really fucking pissed off about the fact that people got rug pulled. That was the only bargaining chip. Everything else, the NACL, the mandate being removed, I support that. I don't support the way they did it, but I support the fact that it happened. What could have the PA have done better? Well, I don't understand what is the right of the player association. I don't understand what their rights are. Do they have a seat at the table? Do they have any power? Or is it all just noise? Yeah, but the thing is, Wunder, right? Like in that context, right? If I can choose, if I have employees and they are relying on a salary and they base their life off of that salary, off of a contract, it's like to bankrupt that part of your project by choice. That is where, you know, the fucked up element of it is, you know? Yo, Buxama, thank you very much. And also Gillies, thank you very much before. Appreciate it. Yeah, of course it falls on the orgs. Yeah, for sure it falls on the orgs. 100%. Yeah, the orgs fucked over a lot of homies. They should be protecting these people. They should have protected these people. 100%. They should have protected these people. Well, they should have honored their contracts. They should have honored their contracts, that's my point. And it's also one of those things, right? It's like I've been rug pulled because there was clauses in my contract that I wasn't aware of. And that sucks. But that's also on me. But some things are very hard to predict. So I've been rug pulled and screwed because I just did the stupid thing of not thinking about what could potentially happen. And that's completely on me. The most famous example, right, is Reckless. This guy got giga screwed, but that's also what he signed, right? That's what he agreed to. Because he couldn't imagine a world where he wouldn't play. And he got sister-fisted. And that sucks. But keep in mind, everybody is going to act in their own best interest. And we're only lucky when those interests align. Yeah, that's the weird thing, right? It's like, if one of the demands was, it's like, that should be like the main focus. The fact that the homies that lost their jobs, protecting those homies should be the priority. If that was the main conversation, I would support that. But I think the mandate doesn't make sense. Tonight, one thing is back in clear focus. Players are the LCS. Without players, there's no league and there's no esport. Well, the thing is, you can replace anything here, man. It's like, well, without internet providers, we can't... There's no league. It's like, yeah, the internet providers are esports. It's like, you can say this about any fucking part. The monitor manufacturers are everything. Without monitors, we can't play. Without keyboards, there's no LCS. It's like, you can say this about fucking anything. Because it goes the other way too. It's like, without the league, there's no fucking job, there's no fucking, you know, you can say it about anything. So it's just like, well, this is from day one, exclusion from the decision-making process drove the LCS play. This is just like, I don't know. I don't like dumb PR. We met with Riot Games today to ask for daily meetings. Okay, so this is important. Or more if needed to reach a resolution. Starting tomorrow, we plan to begin discussions that result in a meaningful collaborative action to get our players back where they want to be, competing for fans on the LCS stage. I don't know. Yeah, the fact that the teams are not involved in this, it's like the teams are just chilling, by the way. The teams are full chilling. It's kind of funny to me, man. I think it's kind of hilarious. I think the organizations that fucked over players, in essence that they are not paying through their contracts and they rug pulled the players, I think that's terrible. That's really fucked up. Like, I think that's where... Like, I think that's bad. But the mandate being gone, I think that's fair. Because the NACL was one of the biggest wastes of money of all time. And the LCS is already struggling to create monetary value out of the teams. How do you expect them to create monetary value in a fucking Challenger League, where it's way harder? FlyQuest, for example, right? They're making money moves, right? It's like FlyQuest, they hired LS, right? LS FlyQuest, and that's a good move. That's a good move, man. That's fucking money well spent, man. Because LS has eyeballs on him. You have to spend money on eyeballs. You have the link tree, right? You pull up their YouTube. Alright, the fucking YouTube doesn't... Great. Shit. The FlyQuest YouTube channel. This shit's popping off. The fucking LS is doing his rundowns here, you know? But if it wasn't, it's like, here we have The Last Dance. FlyQuest LCS Mad Movie. 800 views, son. 800 views. No one gives a fuck. LS Patch Rundown. 18,000. 1116,000. Big gap. This is where you need to fucking spend your money. Ayla has arrived. That's fucking cursed, by the way. That's really cursed. So you get my point, right? It's like, if you want to make an NACL thrive, you need to get the parties that can bring the eyeballs involved. That's just the name of the game. Obviously, like, another way to generate interest in your academy leagues is that your main league is fucking popping off. Right? That's one way. And that is what they tried to create in the LCS. So LCS it tried to do the LCK model, right? And the LDL model. But the truth is, these teams, like these regions, like LCK, CL, right? They're pumping out players that are fucking exciting. And these come from an environment where the best of the best play. LCS need the LEC model. They have parallels. Of course, there are players that have come out of the RLs that play in the LEC. Of course, there's even players in the NACL that are playing in the LCS right now. But in terms of generating interest, bruv, you need your Kamitos. You need your Ibais. You need your Team Heretics. You need your Hand of Blood. You need the Zios. How do you get these guys? Give them a fucking business proposition that is interesting enough to convince them to do it. Super important. Give them incentives to do so. Give them incentives to do so. That's how you save the NACL. That's my take. I don't think the LCS teams know how to fucking monetize. Barely they know how to monetize their main team. You expect them to be able to monetize their challenger team. It's fucking hard, by the way. It's tough. Why is he talking about salt? Bro, you've made that joke so many times. Fucking natrium chloride. So, guys, I think this will lead to nothing. I think the players are gonna cave. I think the teams are gonna cave. This is done. This is done. They've put themselves in a horrible position. This is done. They lost. Riot won. Either Riot wins or the consequences are way too grim. The consequences, it's like if the LCS is not played, it's done. It's done. What do you mean by done? Like, there's nothing to do. Maybe really bad take, but I think best case for NA is that LCS stops and third-party tournaments return. But the thing is, I don't know, Riot wouldn't allow that, man. The whole league system killed it all, man. Bro, back then, even Season 1 and 2, it's like Riot didn't even allow a lot of other tournaments to operate at tournaments they would operate on. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I don't know how much Riot cares about, like, publicity, honestly. Because it's so isolated into LCS. It's like, the Korean scene doesn't give a shit about this. The European scene is just following this for the memes. And the Chinese scene doesn't give a shit about this either. So, I don't know how much negative PR this actually is. Honestly, their league is operating at a negative. Yeah. But I think that's true for, my understanding is this is true for like teams in Korea and Europe and in China too. Well, yeah, I have to say though, this reply here, I think was a slam dunk. I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna think differently in the future, but currently, like, I think LCSPA is looking really bad. I don't see what kind of power they have. But I'm telling you, esports, don't give a shit about esports. Right now, the future is the content creators. The content creators dominate. Content creators are winning. They are the winners. They are the ones with all the power. It's all about eyeballs, guys. Eyeball control. No, when someone told me, by the way, when they told me that NNO couldn't stream, they couldn't stream their games, bruv, that is crazy. How stupid can you be that you don't let that happen? That's like the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Or like that Zio's team couldn't stream their games. That's so fucking stupid, man. Oh, man. I can't believe it. I actually cannot believe it, guys. I cannot believe it. 300% increase in viewership denied? Bro, it's like 3,000%. If I'm Ultra Liga, you know? If I'm Ultra Liga, okay? You know what I'm doing, okay? Well, if I'm Ultra Liga, I can't go stream this. If I'm Ultra Liga, I say, oh my god. Xayo, all the homies in the Polish community, please. Please. Please, 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 please. Please. Please come in to Prime League. Co-stream the games. What can we do to convince you? Please. What can we do to convince you? You want money? How much money you want? You want money? What did they gain from the increased viewership? I think you're forgetting what this is all about. What it is all about. The only revenue source in esports is sponsorships and advertisements. The only revenue source. It's the only revenue source. And the thing is, it branches out. It's like, you think all of the K-pop fans that are tuning in to watch the LFL, to watch K-pop play, you don't think that bleeds out into the rest of the games? It bleeds out to the rest of the games. And you have an opportunity to convince people to watch your product. You convince them to watch your product. Esports viewers are not worth a lot of money, guys. They're not. Yeah, despite leading the LCK in sponsorship revenue the last 3 years, our league team has never turned a profit. We have continued to invest into esports scene, but macro conditions continue to worsen. A new business model is needed. Well, keep in mind, Genji invests a lot of money into talent, right? They invest a lot of money into talent, when I mean like outside of the main roster, and they have pretty expensive players, I can imagine. We were talking about Chovy before, right? But then again, this is a Genji that has gone to the World Championship. This is a Genji that had Ruler on contract for a very long time, right? So it's like, it's a give and take. So I don't know how to accurately analyze this or assess this, because we don't have the necessary information in order to make a accurate assessment of this. Is it something you can sell to esports viewer besides merch and ad spots? I think that esports viewers have been conditioned to not spend any money, sadly. Yeah, that's really troll, Mr. Patik. Really troll. It's like in the UFC, they have events. They have conditioned their fans to pay pay-per-view or find the pirated stream. Where there's not even a subscription. People are not even paying a subscription. Imagine you would pay $8. Let's say you would pay $8 a month, okay? To get access to LCK, LPL, LCS, and LEC. Like a Netflix subscription. All right. People would be able to spend that, man. How would it work for co-streamers then? You'd figure out a way. You see people say, fuck no, right? I can assure you nobody gonna pay. I don't know. That's the whole thing, right? It's like esports fans have been conditioned to get everything for free. And that's the problem. So the only thing that teams can make money off of is your attention. So it's ads, it's Kit Kats, and a bunch of other shit. Yeah, I don't know. I think also it's like Riot, in terms of the money that they're generating from League, all of that money they're just spending to murder their competition. And they don't want to invest more in places where they have less competition. Right now, you know who they have in their sight? Fucking, they want a headshot CSGO, dude. That is, they want to murder CSGO. That's what they want to take over. They want to take over the fighting scene. The MOBA scene is already won. It's done. Dota homies, okay, God bless you. You know, you like your game. But Valorant child game, that's exactly what people said about League of Legends. MOBA won. Valorant is dead in EU, bro? Nah, you're completely lost, bro. Yeah, obviously, Valve will fight back. Yeah? Valve is a way better developer than Riot will ever be at video games. I can tell you, mate. Sometimes, you know, there's been cases in CSGO when they've been playing 6 months on the same patch and everyone complained about the same fucking guns being broken. Everyone's just CZing, one-tapping my fucking AK-47. And then the patch note comes up, it's like one fucking change. They changed the AUG, the CZ, and we had to wait fucking 6 months for that shit. Bruv. Valve is great. Don't get me wrong, Valve is great. But they have their issues too, yeah? They definitely have their issues too. I think Jodo Beast, what you're saying is completely anecdotal. I think Valorant's edge is actually the fact that there is power in abilities, so the people that suck at aiming actually have like an easier entry point. Oh yeah, let's be honest. Most companies, when they reach the size of Valve or Blizzard or Riot Games, bruv, it's like they are in a different dimension. They're in a different dimension. Yeah, Valve is completely popping off, right? They're making bank. Like Steam. Steam has been a thing for as long as I remember. For sure. But bruv, don't get me started on Blizzard, mate. Don't get me started on Blizzard. It's like I don't even know why I'm even getting fucking excited. I don't even know why I'm getting excited for Diablo 4. Bro, I was excited for Warcraft 3 Reforged. I was kind of excited for Overwatch 2. Like, they have so much credit in my brain, you know? Because my whole childhood was Blizzard. I played Diablo 1, Diablo 2. I played Diablo 2 so much. I played Warcraft 3 so much. Diablo 3, what a shit game. Bruv. They killed Deckard Cain like that. Act 1 was interesting, but then you reach Act 2 and it's such garbage. It's such garbage. I didn't think they could make a worse act than Lut Gulain. Like, fucking these desert acts. I hate them. Mate. How do you say it even? I've never said the name of the Act 2 out loud. Is it Lut Gulain? I don't even know. It's just one of those things I never said out loud, so maybe I'm saying it wrong. Diablo 3, what a shit game. World of Warcraft 2, like what the fuck happened to World of Warcraft, man? Imagine you built a world for fucking 10 years, and then a dragon just burns it all. It's like, what the fuck? Fucking Mr. Pandaria, mate. Bro, Heroes of the Storm. I have to say though, it's like Blizzard. It's like Heroes of the Storm is a fucking fun game, dude. It's fucking severely mismanaged. Bro, the way Blizzard does esports, Jesus Christ, you can't have it worse. I remember like a friend of mine, he played Mr. Pandaria. He was the best feral druid on the server. His name was WoW Druid. He qualified to BlizzCon. But BlizzCon was not played on the patch that he qualified on. And the next patch, they nerfed feral druid to hell. So there was no point in playing feral druid anymore. And that's like, he didn't even go to the tournament. Because what's the fucking point? Ziomas, thank you very much for the tier 1. IGN gave Diablo 4 a 9 out of 10. IGN? Holy, I trust IGN. That is the best reviewing platform ever. But hey, mate. I'm going to be playing Diablo 4. That's for sure. I'm going to hit the gym now because my pre-workout is popping off, man. Bro, when I drink pre-workout, I get one guide so fucking hard. I don't know why, dude. My vein in my head starts popping off. I get giga one guide when I drink pre-workout. It's too funny, dude. That guy before was saying, yeah, human rights and all. Crazy that this human rights. Oh, shit. Okay. This was a good time. This was a good time, guys. This was a good time.